Hi guys, this is episode 2 of the Anime Chat.
Yeah, that didn't sound forced at all, Charlie.
Thanks. Watch us, listen to us as we start back up with Full Metal Alchemist.
I wanted to talk about one that's more your wheelhouse as well, because another...
All right, no pressure.
Another series that is dangerously close to becoming mainstream, I'd argue, at this point, is Full Metal Alchemist, which again is another good example of having multiple versions, but also it's a bit more tightly of, it is all the same universe, but we have a spin-off series which a lot of people actually prefer to the original series.
Yeah.
Which references being part of the main world, but this takes place alongside or separate to or simultaneously with the other story, and there's a lot of murkiness. It's
a real weird one. So I didn't have anything to do with the property until both the TV series were already done and dusted.
Yeah.
So you've got Full Metal Alchemist, and then you've got Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and they get referred to basically as Full Metal Alchemist, and then rather than the Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, it's just called Brotherhood within conversations. And I didn't know where to jump on, so I went with the oldest one first. I'm thinking chronologically, so So Full Metal came first, and I really loved the voice acting between the two brothers, Edward and Alphonse. In Brotherhood, Alphonse, who's the guy that, without giving it away, he's the big armoured one. The younger brother is the big armoured one. He's a different actor. He's not bad. It's just different.
Yeah.
But when you've got the original actor doing the voice for Ed, it'd be easier to watch if everyone was different. But when you've got certain pull over, it's from a sort of, from sitting in something and feeling comfortable, it's almost puts you on an edge a little bit, because it's there, but just ever so slightly not.
Yeah.
And I watched Full Metal Alchemist. The film is there's a standalone film. No, actually, I think that's part of Brotherhood. But again, it gets murky, where they go into different dimensions and stuff, and all this. It's pretty clear that it's not set in our world, because alchemy is a thing. Equivalent exchange is a definite thing. So I watched all of Full Metal Alchemist, and then really loved it. I was like, all right, okay, I'm going to watch Brotherhood. And I liked Brotherhood more.
Yeah.
It's a bit more, in a weird way, I feel like it's a bit more Western in its structure. It's shorter.
More conventional story arcs.
Just closer to what we're used to. And then it's conversations that you and I have had where you said, I want to get into it. Like, I've watched it. I've enjoyed what I've seen of it. What would you like say? Or, what would you tell people? And I've gone, oh yeah, go with Brotherhood. Definitely go with Brotherhood. But because I've enjoyed Brotherhood so much, I went back and watched it again. And as I was watching it, not so close to watching Full Metal Alchemist, I was like, oh, you know what? My enjoyment of Brotherhood is definitely based on being able to fill in the blanks between episodes, knowing what happened because of Full Metal Alchemist.
Yeah.
It doesn't skirt, but it doesn't... Rather than giving you 3 episodes on one story arc, it'll give you 1 in Brotherhood. And I don't know whether or not it was a choice to go, oh, the audience will have already seen Full Metal Alchemist, so they'll know all this bit.
Yeah.
But Full Metal Alchemist works without Brotherhood. I think Brotherhood is a lesser show you've not seen the Full Metal Alchemist, which is neither good or bad. It's just that's how I personally feel about it. They're both really, really great shows. There's certain things in Full Metal Alchemist which actually go against what I really like in animation. Like there is a sort of, someone blows up into the air and they have almost like an emoji face and the teardrop and all that sort of stuff,
like chibi animation style. And it goes suddenly,
I find that quite disjointed. Like it puts me at a weird angle whenever I watch that. But in Full Metal Alchemist, I don't necessarily think for me it works, but in the scales of enjoyment, the other stuff is way weightier. So I can just, it's fine. That's a choice that they made.
Yeah.
I'll just not ignore it, but because
it doesn't take you out of it
It doesn't take me out of it as much.
Yeah.
But I think if you were to ignore those things, like no, they're in there for a specific reason. They'll show a character.
Yeah.
And it's normally the comedy parts when people first meet the Full Metal Alchemist and they assume it's the big metal guy when actually it's the small brother, older brother next to him, and he gets really angry about it. And all the way through it, he's called short and all this. It's almost like the Marty McFly, don't call me like chicken or yellow or whatever it is in whichever film of Back to the Future you're watching. Like, there's a couple of really standout moments for me in the show where the Chimera episode. So it's basically the joining of an animal and a person.
Right.
So anyone who's watched the show will know exactly what I'm talking about and who gets joined. Without ruining it for you, but it's that classic thing of they let you fall in love with a certain dynamic between characters, and then it goes that beat too far, and an irreparable change happens.
Yeah.
And as a viewer, you're stood. You could almost be the third brother with the Elrics, are they called? Yeah.
Yeah.
And you stood there like, oh God, that's a shocker.
Yeah.
And you're literally taking. I had my breath taken away with what happened. And then the next episode over, you've got one of them going, "Don't call me little," and the Bitmoji faces and stuff like that. And so it can be a real emotional roller coaster, especially with the subject matter that they're talking about, like, because it's equivalent exchange, and to do the bigger the thing that you want to do, the more you have to pay for it, and what's actually asked of you.
Yeah, more power.
What is your payment?
Or more output means more sacrificed, essentially.
Yeah,
there's a couple of things I want to touch on that you mentioned there, because that's one thing for me. I've probably said before in here, if not to you 100 times at least, is I enjoy that way less. Anything that leans into the dramatic emoji type reaction, which actually emojis come from that, not the other way around. But for the context of most people, I know we know that.
Oh yeah, we know, yeah. DRH, we know that.
That really takes me out of it.
Yeah.
More.
I've had to learn not to let that affect me as much.
See, I'm not as fast a learner as Charlie, so I'm still struggling. But what it comes down to for me,
my mum's going to be so proud that you've said that. I'm like, I've been considered a fast learner.
For me, if a show has a very clean and very almost real style animated wise, like Full Metal does, where anatomically and proportion wise everything is very believable. I get, one of the characters is a floating suit of armor essentially, so
but it's like what we've talked about in comic book films as well, like the physics
makes sense within that world.
Yeah.
If it
push it rather than break it.
Yeah, and if it looks that way, where I go, I can imagine, even if that's an 8-foot tall suit of armor walking around that's technically floating, it's just limbs just connected by whatever. I can imagine being in the room with that, and I get that that's about there, and I could shake its hand, and I get the strength. Mm-hmm. For it to really focus on this looks real, and you can buy into it. To then a scene later, a character just goes like, whoa, and then goes red and massive head, and that's when I go, oh, okay.
What I'll do is for when I'm putting this together, I'll get like between me and Lewis right now, so probably around about here, I'll try and find two really quintessential examples of it, just to see from a style point of view, like how. Again, it's not good or bad. It's just their facts of the choices that they made. It just to illustrate, because it's drawings, right? What we're talking about.
Yeah, but like you say, that is also part of the fact that this is from a different culture and a different part of the world. And as much as it can take me out of it, the shows like Pokemon, or in Pokemon's probably the best example where it happens in that. But it's already a very exaggerated style. The characters don't look human. They look. they look what people think of as an anime character. So it's easier that in this world, I get that it might not literally.
It feels more of a stretch in Full Metal Alchemist than it does in something like Pokemon. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and but it is part of it, just from a different culture, and that's also kind of why, if I like a show enough, I can get past it, because at the same time, the point is, I'm quite not just me. We are quite privileged that we get to in the modern day. It's arguably very easy to enjoy something from the other side of the world and have access to literally whole universes of stories that even 10, 15 years ago were quite hard to get hold of.
Well, yeah, I mean, I remember going to, like, not even places like Forbidden Planet had, all like a massive array of, like, you'd have your Akiras there, you'd have your Ghost in the Shell, you'd have your Ninja Scroll and stuff like that, or the Street Fighter animation, which shouldn't be a great film, but the actual Street Fighter, the first Street Fighter animated film is great. But the smaller niche things weren't, you didn't have the easy access to it, and exactly what you said. Like, we are very privileged, that we can, with very little resistance, completely delve into, from your point of view, almost like a completely alien experience. That that only the modern world can really, like, give you.
And then you'll go back and, for things like Sword Art Online, for example, which I've got into recently, there's animated series.
I've seen part of Sword Art Online. I think I've got up to the bit where, because it's all in, it's all like a medieval sort of setting, isn't it, originally?
The first series, yeah.
And then it flicks into sort of like the fairies and sort of more.
Really leans into the fantasy at a certain point.
Yeah, I've got up to the fantasy point.
Yeah, and that's technically the second series, but I think over here, the first and second Sword Art Online are one series, and then you've got the Gun Gale world where it becomes like military sci-fi world.
What within Sword Art Online?
Yeah.
Okay.
But like without, I mean, it's not spoiling anything really, but it's a different game. But you have certain of the same characters have their new avatar in this world, and
okay.
Stuff like that. You'll get into a series and you'll go, oh look, Netflix happens to have this great series. Then you realise that, this is all based on cool manga or light novels, and then you go, what's a light novel? Well, actually, in Japan, there's authors who will literally churn out a book every month, have it illustrated, and that's pretty standard over there. That's kind of like there's a huge industry. So
that's what I'm talking about, like an alien world. Like, it's just so different from how it's still seen as, like, almost like a niche thing, animation in the West, but like you could, there's whole families over there that will the mum, the dad, the sisters, the brother, they could all be into anime and manga, and I think it goes back to what you were saying about it's sometimes incorrectly labeled as a genre, and it's like, well, I'm not consuming the same thing that my mum consumes, like, so therefore it's not a genre strictly, or really it's more it's an art form or a style.
Exactly. And there's definitely certain tropes and certain styles and expectations that do permeate through a lot of anime, especially the bigger ones, but that's also because, one, that's kind of the popular trends from Asia, it comes from a certain place, but also certain ones were easier to market to the West because it was already quite a genre, quite a cool thing that people, if you're into comic books and superheroes and aliens and sci-fi, there's loads of really good examples of that from anime. But then actually, to say that anime is a genre is like, well, no, because you've got the equivalent to, like, Coronation Street or, Dallas or Dynasty, whatever American soaps there are out there.
Yeah.
You've got the equivalent of that in a light novel, in a manga, in a weekly comic, in an animated series. And something we talked about earlier as well, I think it's worth going into a little bit, is how some of the stories do fit a more Western storytelling format, almost like the hero's journey, where it's a more traditional, doesn't even have to be a chosen one, but it can just be a character who's very relatable. They're not overly powerful, they're not overly weak, they're a bit of an everyman, and we watch them go through a journey and achieve something.
Yeah.
Something that comes up in a lot of anime and manga and a lot more of these Asian stories is the main character does lean more weak, and it's a much steeper climb for them to even become competent. Not even, and a lot of the time they won't even end up being the most powerful character. There's a lot of, especially more modern anime, that bits that I'll just touch upon now, that I've not even watched all of it the way I would like with the Dragon Ball Z or something like that, or Ghost in the Shell. I might only have seen one series, but I get the impression that actually this main character never becomes the best. He's never the most powerful hero. The whole show is about the fact that they're always up against it. They're always beyond the underdog. They're always really struggling and just about
the thing that pops into
winning.
my mind when you started talking about that is Tokyo Ghoul. The lead character in that. Oh God, he's just not having a good life, is he? And that, I mean, he does have a bit of a gear shift part way through it, through a horrendous torture scene that just goes on and on.
It's quite tough to watch.
But there's certain points in that where I just feel like I want to go up to the character and just shake him and go, "What the fuck are you doing?" Like, and I think that kind of happens.
You're our main character.
Yeah, come on, we're watching you, dude. We're with you. But yeah, it does happen, and sometimes that tonal shift or that choice of having a very sort of weak, I dare say, pathetic lead. Yeah. Sometimes it's too much for me. Yeah. Sometimes, and it's almost difficult to watch, just because you don't want to be frustrated with what they're going up against. But I personally find it difficult to be frustrated at the main character. Yeah. I kind of want to be with that person, or imagine myself as that person, or they're making decisions that would line up with how I'd make decisions based on that situation. But when you've literally got them in the corner crying and never and very weak people,
very, very, it's funny, isn't it? It's very, not to get into lines of like toxic masculinity, but it's very beta male versus alpha male, and the idea of maybe it's an insecurity we have in the West where our hero needs to at least become the alpha, even if they don't start as the alpha. Whereas a lot of these more Eastern stories, they're not afraid to say, this guy is who he is, and despite power being bestowed on them or managing to learn something or earn something, at the end of the day, this is their character, and if you like them enough, you'll stick with them at points when you might be quite frustrated at them. It's a tough one. I'm the same as you. It can take me out of it too much sometimes, to the point where I can find it difficult to follow. And even in terms of story structure, there's something you mentioned before about, for example, Brotherhood was made, and it feels like they went, well, if you're watching this, you've seen Full Metal, so you know what's happened. Yeah. And I actually think maybe that's also, from a Western point of view, or from what we're used to watching, that might be seen as a negative. Actually, that just shows that the market there tailors for the fan of the franchise. So, and not fan service, but if this is a sequel series to something, we're going to assume that you've watched the first series, so this is for you. And not that you can't now watch this and enjoy it, but basically you need to go back and catch up, because, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because think of how think of all the stuff we love where the studio's massively compromised on something in the story or a character or a choice, and you think, well, there's still a way to do this without having seen the first one. But actually, imagine how great this would be if you'd only seen... Perfect example, actually, we spoke about it recently, WandaVision. Now, if you've watched WandaVision without watching the MCU, we know that, your other half has basically done that, and I know people who've basically done that, and they still get out of it what they want to. Mm-hmm. Let's be honest, a lot of it was basically, you've seen the MCU. Well, if you've not, you're gonna
miss every other thing.
You're gonna be playing catch up the whole time.
Yeah.
And what a great series it was. So again, the format works here. Maybe it's happening.
It's weird because Full Metal, well, that's it. Is it permeating? And I think we mentioned about the accessibility to the alien world to us. It's not just from a consumer's point of view. It's also from an art point of view that they are going to influence each other way more than you realise, and good or bad. And there's a whole political and moral implications of this when you see different edits for different regions of the world and stuff like that. We're not gonna get into that. No, it's not. There's people who are way more highly educated than we are on those topics, and they struggle with it. So nah. So they are going to go back and forward. But when you talked about like Brotherhood, and I mentioned how in Full Metal Alchemist they'll have 3 episodes on a particular thing, and in Brotherhood they'll do it as one. They also talk about things in Brotherhood that we have never seen that happened in Full Metal Alchemist.
Yeah.
And is it a cheeky way to go, let's keep this shorter, more fast-paced version of Full Metal Alchemist. Let's keep to that. But anything that we actually think is actually quite, not necessarily important, but it enriches the world. Let's talk about it, but then assume that the audience have seen it in Full Metal Alchemist. So that bit is that little bit that's definitely canon.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they move on. There's a character in it, Barry the Chopper, who is Barry the Chopper.
I think I went to school with Barry the Chopper.
Which, for a Western audience, for Western audiences, Barry the Chopper, he sounds like an East End gangster.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
or a lad from where I live.
You're right. Yeah, you've seen Barry the Chopper. You're right, chop chop. But yeah, he's called Barry the Chopper, and he's a serial killer, a human serial killer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he ends up similar to one of the brothers in a suit in an armor. This isn't spoiling anything, but the basic story is that the brothers end up sacrificing the arm and leg to equivalent exchange, and the younger brother sacrifices his whole body. So the older brother combines his soul to a suit of armor that's near. So the story then carries on where one of them's got a metal arm, metal leg, and the other is in a full. He's not in a full suit. His essence is in this full suit of armor, which is why he doesn't have to have like alchemy symbols to produce, his alchemy. I was going to say magic, but in their world it's alchemy. He can do it because he's sacrificed so much already. Yeah. But when Al meets Barry the Chopper, there's this whole, what you would expect, like, we've got the massive suit of armor brother.
Yeah, yeah.
He's going against this other armor, which is, he's like a skull and a bit more sort of animalistic. He's got fur and stuff, and he's got his weapon or whatever. And he's like, we're gonna have a big battle here, and you do get elements of that. But actually, what Barry does is he starts having this intellectual battle, almost a bit vision on vision sort of thing of like, are you bound to this armor, but you only know about your backstory because your brother's told you about it, and like, are you real? And if you've not got a body, and start having this debate about what is it to be, be alive and to be human, or so the whole big fight still happens, but on a much more intellectual base.
Yeah.
Which then makes it more difficult that in the next scene you've got a guy floating in the air like, and or does that make it actually work more because you've got the bigger juxtaposition between the two sides of it? Yeah, I don't know. It is difficult. I think if anyone was to try and get into something like Full Metal Alchemist, that unfortunately I think you've got to watch the whole thing. You've got to watch the big chunky Full Metal Alchemist first one and then the second one, because as much as they do line up with each other story art wise, there's the homunculus characters in it who in Brotherhood only half of them are the same ones as they were in the first one. The other half are completely different characters, and it's non-related at all. So you get to the end of Brotherhood, and Brotherhood and Full Metal Alchemist sort of match up bit by bit, but then by the end, completely different ways. They go at the end to, who are the, the movers and shakers of this universe.
One last thing I want to touch on as well, which is really going down a rabbit hole. We've talked about how there's different. There'll be the manga. In Japan, for example, it's all manga, but here we call the animated films anime and the comics manga.
Which is really confusing when you're starting to Google stuff or in forums talking about it. It's like, what do they mean by that? Because obviously manga are a studio, but it's quite confusing.
Then you've got the light novels, web novels, everything. You've got all that. Where it gets even more fun, and for me there's a particular series that I'm sure I've mentioned on here before, and I'm sure I will again every week, is the base of the Dynasty Warriors reskins, who there's a whole series of games, of Warriors games, where they'll take a popular anime or manga series and they'll basically make a hack and slash beat 'em up or big fighting game, but they'll also follow the events of the series, and they'll just turn either certain battles into even bigger battles, or they'll turn certain story arcs into a battle format. And I think it's an example where I think this is a little more popular in the West in some ways for certain series. You've got yet another way to experience a different version of either the main story or a different version of the story. So, for example, one I'm playing at the moment is One Piece Pirate Warriors. One Piece, again, is a big, for people who are into manga and anime, is one of the bigger series. It's
on my list. I've watched bits and bobs of it, so I'm very much aware of it through conversations and also little bits that I've watched. But because it is such a massive thing, it's on the list. But I feel like I need to clear a whole year's worth of with the stuff.
Yeah,
a bit like Bleach. It's such a massive undertaking that you kind of need to dedicate a bit of time to it to kind of immerse yourself in that world.
Well, yeah, exactly. And with One Piece, I've known of it and seen character designs and heard bits of the story and thought this sounds great. And it's one of those series that there's tons of it out there. So, as much as that can be daunting, and I know people argue that now people's attention span's shorter than ever, but actually, look at how much people binge watch series. I think if it's good enough, people will put the time in.
Yeah.
Where you've got the difference is if people watch the first 5 minutes and it's naff, then they'll never go back to it again. I think that's probably where the disconnect I find in what people say that.
Yeah.
My thing was, well, I love Dynasty Warriors games and I love the reskins of anime series that they've done. So I'm going to first play one of the One Piece Pirate Warriors games. It might spoil certain big story elements, but at least I get a condensed version of possibly a few years of it. I get to play it. It looks great. But then it's like, well, if I love this, I know that there's tons of it to get into, further down the line, which I think is a way that if people are, anyone out there who's into gaming, I think that's another way to maybe, I'm not sure where to start with certain series. So One Piece is a series that I've played. Berserk has a good game out there. It uses visuals from the remake, which isn't as popular as the original, but again, it's worth even playing the first couple hours to get an idea of what the story is, who the characters are, and then maybe going back. Arslan, what's it called? Arslan Warriors of Legend. I just looked on my shelf. I didn't remember. It's another one that
they're all up there on his shelf.
I
just stood there.
I hadn't even heard of the light novels / animated series that it came from. I think I heard of the game first and was like, oh, this is interesting, and then found out, oh yeah, but guess what, Lou? Good news. There's loads of it out there after you've played the game. So it's another fun way to a different way to consume something that's great with some really solid stories. But in that case, it's a bit more interactive and definitely more condensed than, oh, there's 100 volumes of manga you need to read. Play a few levels of this game and you'll probably start to realise, do you like the character or not? Yeah,
because sometimes you need to be given that sort of enough of it to immerse yourself into, to get a feel for it before you want to take on what are now quite meaty, properties, really.
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah, it's definitely a good way of doing it.
Is there anything that you think would benefit from let's release a series of novels, maybe light novel format of a monthly book. It might not be the most deep and biggest quality, but there's a monthly book coming with animated panels, and then there's going to be a comic, and then we're going to do different. Every new series is its own pocket universe. Is there anything that you think like, oh, I'd get into that?
Well, actually, one of the things that popped into my mind then was the Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like, it came from a comic book originally, and there's a character that I thought was really, really cool when I was a kid was Casey Jones. The hockey mask on his face.
Did not think you were going to say Casey Jones, but yeah.
Oh, did you think I was going to say?
I thought you were going to say Raph. I know that's the obvious one. He's the Wolverine of the Turtles, isn't he? But...
Yeah. But I always thought Casey Jones looked really cool, and he's a vigilante in his own right.
Yeah.
And I always thought like a dark telling of maybe a one shot of what he's doing, or maybe before he met the Turtles, or what he does when the Turtles aren't around could be quite interesting, especially with like the Turtles coming back in comic book form, or the one that I've started with. It's set in the future, and there's only one turtle, and it's
nice. Okay.
Yeah, it's very, very dark. Of which turtle is it? And you can hear the narration of his not hear narration. You can see it's narrated, and he has conversations in his mind with his brothers.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if it's the Foot Clan, but they've taken over whole areas, and it's like almost very militarized future. And you're trying to figure out what's happened in the story.
Yeah.
It's gone very, very dark. And I think a dark telling of like a Casey Jones story could be really, really cool.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout as well, because there already is quite a few different animated series that have their own continuity and their own retelling. So I think people probably already on board with like, oh yeah, we get it. There's another new Turtles, another new version, but it's like, yeah, but now we're going to spend a year doing these online novels with illustrated panels, and then we're going to do a year of its own little comic book, and then and there's enough characters and depth in that universe.
This is it. Yeah, so either bring completely new characters into it, or use Casey Jones as a well-known enough character, but let him interact with other smaller characters within that world. Another one, we brought up computer games as well, is that I've wanted this for such a long time. Grand Theft Auto set in Neo Tokyo from Akira.
Yeah.
Just that. You don't have to bring like the Akira abilities into it, or like the main story of it, but like just that world. That, I mean,
they've done it. Cyberpunk. It was great, right?
No, that game will get there eventually.
On the 100th patch, it's really good.
The film is set at night, so they had to bring in so many more versions of each of the colours for the shadows and stuff like that. And the city is so grounded in the movie that you watch it and you go, oh, these areas like the uptown sort of like the very wealthy areas with the diners and the very immaculate streets, and then you've got like almost like the ghettoized versions, and I just think it's screaming for, you know, a computer based version of that. Unfortunately, it's just not Akira itself is just not it's not popular enough right now to warrant that.
But then I do wonder, taking that Western property and doing the Eastern version of it, something like Grand Theft Auto or a Grand Theft Auto adjacent. I mean, the writers of those games are practically film and story writers at this point. Anyway, the amount of storylines interwoven.
Well, actually, Saints Row. There was a motorbike in Saints Row that is based on that. Yeah. You could, my little animated, my little model there on his bike. So there's definitely, like what you were going to say, like the people behind it care enough about it.
Yeah, and so imagine, this is the way I picture it in terms of taking that Western property and giving it the Eastern, sort of conveyor belt of different types. You'd have a year of the writers just churning out, here's a group of stories in the vein of what we do with Grand Theft Auto, but put it in Akira's Neo Tokyo. Put it in Ghost in the Shell's Newport City, I think it's called, in one of the 100 versions of Ghost in the Shell. And then if it gets enough traction, we can either we can keep this series going, or right, let's commission other writers to do their own series in this world, and then we can start to go towards comic book or manga version. Then we can start saying, right, well, you know, there's a huge audience there already. I mean, there already is with the Grand Theft Auto games anyway.
Oh yeah.
That's when they start saying, is there an animated series from this? Is there a set of original video animations come from it? Is that, you know, I do think, and maybe actually I'm thinking about this wrong, rather than taking existing properties and proving things and doing that, which is probably where Western studios lean more towards, try the Eastern approach of, as long as it's in a genre or a format or in the vein of something that we know works, that we know people like, let a creator do their new story, their new character. Let them, you know,
let them off the lead a little bit and let them.
Let them come up with something now that let it find really nail down a solid audience of a good number of people, and then just start making a load of versions of it. And if people weren't happy with how the second season ended, you know, like Walking Dead, for example, after the first 2 or 3 seasons, I tap out, even though I really enjoyed it. Make a spin-off season that isn't a prequel or a sequel. It's maybe a different version of this world. You enjoyed it up to a certain point. Fine. Well, guess what? Just imagine this takes place after that. You don't have to worry about, is it, you know, is this like Rick and all them? It doesn't matter. Yes.
Where is Rick? Is he going to come into it? It's like maybe not. If he might. He's canon. He's not canon. Like
I do wonder if, you know, in the age of the internet, as creators need less of a traditional audience to fund and really justify a property. Do you think we're maybe moving towards that approach to it?
I'd like to think so. I think that it would definitely, from an artistic point of view, possibly give more chances of something really more interesting and give more life to something like happening. Because how many times have you watched something and gone, it was all kind of there, but it didn't quite come together correctly.
Yeah.
And then it goes, it didn't come together correctly. Right, done, never to be revisited. It's like, that's a waste because it was.
Yeah, let's make the Brotherhood spin-off.
yeah. But do you know what I mean? Like it failed. It stumbled on the starting blocks or whatever, and now we just write that thing off altogether. That seems a bit unfair when it just, you know, it could be revisited.
And it feels less gratuitous than a full remake, which tends to happen here. And if you notice, actually, a lot of the remakes here, when I say here, in the West, it tends to be something that was either already really popular or it almost matches shot for shot something that is currently popular. Let's remake that. When actually, like you say, something that was nearly there, something that was like a solid 6 or 7 out of 10, but we know there's an audience there that will like this. Let's do a spin-off. Let's do a reimagining. And it might feel less unwarranted than a full remake, full big budget. You know, maybe like you say, maybe it's a case of saying, let's literally pick out the cast that we liked, pick out the characters that we liked, and maybe we change some of the other stuff, and let's just do a different version of it. And
give it another whirl. Yeah.
Maybe we're asking for too much. Who knows?
Maybe.
Anything else you want to add, Charlie?
Remember, guys, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
Bye.
Bye. Bang one out.